Welcome to the Chronically Will podcast, where we have real conversations with community that needs to be heard. On today's episode, I have the honor, the privilege of speaking with one Monique. Monique is someone who I've communicated briefly with through this online space. I truly didn't want to have a full conversation with you, Monique. I don't know if you understood that over the last few months because I wanted to wait. I wanted to wait
Okay.
until we sat down and had that conversation because I don't know. It's almost like a gift to me when I'm unraveling this package of this conversation, this organic conversation. And I just knew because of our mutual friend Brunetta that your story was something that not only I needed to hear, not only that the mass public needed to hear, but it was something that you needed to gift to us. Thank you,
Okay.
Monique, for joining us on this
You're
journey.
welcome.
Could you please give the audience a summary of who you are?
Okay. My name is Monique, and I'm a native of Philadelphia. I am the youngest of five girls.
Youngest of five girls,
Yes. And I'm the only one with type 1 diabetes.
the only one with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, the only person with type 1 diabetes.
So you were diagnosed in 1972.
Yes.
Wow. You've been through it all.
Well, I had it for 52.
I mean, 52 years.
52 years.
You've been through it all. You're 62 now.
Mm-hmm.
Diagnosed at 10.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. When you were diagnosed in 1972, that was right. That was about 6 years, 5, 6 years before even human insulin was
Yeah,
used.
it was
Beef and pork.
beef and pork. That was it. And I can tell you the price. A vial of insulin was like $1.97.
$1.97.
$1.97. A box of syringes was something like $6. 100 for six. And they were painful. The
Ah,
gauge, yeah. I they didn't come out with the 18 gauge until maybe 10 years later.
so
But that
were
needle
you,
had a thick point.
was it the ones that you had to sterilize yourself?
Oh no, no, they were
Okay.
plastic.
Okay, so you were 10 years after that.
Hmm.
Okay. And I want to ask you this right now. So you were diagnosed in 1972. When did you find out that you actually had type 1 diabetes?
The same day. The
Okay.
same. Yeah. Um. Long. Well, a year before I was diagnosed, I remember I was at a school fair. No, it was that summer. It was that summer. I was diagnosed in August. That May, we yeah, spring fair. Sorry. That May we had a school fair, and I remember I had $5 worth of tickets, and I had a friend Gretchen, and there was another friend with me, and we were at the fair, and I was spending all my tickets on lemonade. That's all I was buying. I was just lemonade. And then I was even drinking my friend's lemonade. And my mother was volunteering that day. And I ran back to the stand and asked her for more tickets. And she gave me more tickets. And I remember sitting on the side. I didn't eat, I just drank. And that was May. June, July, my father noticed I was going back and forth to the bathroom, but they were equating it to summer. When you're hot, you drink. It wasn't until 3 weeks later, a friend returned from vacation and she looked at my mother and she said, She looks like she lost a significantly amount of weight in the past 2 weeks because they were at my house 2 weeks before they left for vacation. And so my mother said, okay, she said, I'm going to take her tomorrow because I was able to put on a pair of shorts that I wasn't able to fit 2 weeks prior. And my mother was folding them up to donate them. And they just slid on. And that morning, I remember I was going to the doctor, my mother explaining to the doctor, she noticed I've been drinking a lot of water and I lost weight. I might lost about, I might have lost about 10, 15 pounds. I wasn't that big in the first place, but you noticed it. So the doctor told her, we were in the ER, he gave me 2 gallon jugs and told me to go to the bathroom, and I filled both gallon jugs to the top. And then I remember there was the ketone pill, the, and he put 1 drop. It turned dark purple. It was almost black. And they admitted me right there. I stayed in the hospital 2 weeks. And he introduced me to Dr. Lester Baker. That was at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Chop.
Yes,
How long did you spend in the hospital?
two
You said
weeks.
2 weeks.
And during my stay, as I was walking down the hall, there was a young lady walking towards me. And we introduced ourselves, and my mother introduced herself to her mother. And she asked, what was I in there for? My mother said, oh, she was diagnosed with diabetes. And her daughter was diagnosed as well. It was by accident. Her daughter was playing with her brother's testing supplies. And then we used the test tube. So it was
Hmm.
10 drops of water, 5 drops of urine. You had a little test tube.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah. And you just shook it after you were finished. And it turned bright orange. And they rushed her to the hospital. And they had a chat. And that's when my mother found out she had 5 sons, all with type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
Neither her or her husband had type 1 diabetes, just the kids.
So she had 5 sons, and now,
And 1 daughter.
wow. Ah, have you ever thought over the years, like, where are they now?
Yeah, I was wondering where were they now? We kept in contact maybe 2 years. I still have the figurines she gave me. I still have the sweater that her mother knitted a sweater for me. And they lived in Jersey.
Okay. Look, I'm gonna make it my mission. We're gonna find out where they now. 'Cause that's something
I don't know her last name. All I remember, her name was Linda, and she had blonde hair.
look, we're gonna find her.
We're
That's
going to find her.
yup, Linda, blonde
Linda with
hair
blonde hair,
in New
diagnosed in
Jersey.
1972.
Mm-hmm. 1972. That's all I need to know.
Mhm.
We're gonna figure this out. Um, wow. So your mom's friend who hadn't seen you in a couple weeks,
Just 2 weeks.
2 weeks,
Mhm.
noticed, and your parents didn't notice because they saw you every single
Every day.
day. Your parents, siblings, family, people who saw you on a regular didn't recognize it. And that reminds me of when I was diagnosed, I had lost 40 pounds. No
Mhm.
one noticed.
No,
No one noticed at all, but our diagnosis. So I created a diagnosis story a few years ago, and I think last spring we had a Philadelphia meetup with a bunch of people, and we were sitting at a table talking about our diagnosis and everything, our lives living with type 1 diabetes over the years. And one of the crazy things you're going to be like, wow. So almost all of us, it was like seven of us. I think like five of us were like, before we got diagnosed, we had this crazy craving and urge like for lemonade.
And I mentioned lemonade. Yeah.
Yes, and I wrote it down and I circled it like Monique's lemonade. Like it's something, it's with the acid in it, and our body craves it as we're losing the ability to produce the insulin. Um but yeah, we had that strong craving for lemonade. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
funny. So Children's Hospital of Philadelphia back in 1972 is
It was
nothing
on
compared.
eight. Yeah, it was on 18th and Bainbridge then. It
Right.
didn't move to Civic Center Boulevard to maybe 4 years later, maybe.
No, Monique, you are an anomaly. You know
Hmm.
why? Because back in like in the early 70s, a person of color diagnosed with diabetes,
Hmm.
typically everyone just said, "Oh, they got type 2 diabetes." Well, not even type 2, they just was like they didn't place you with the juvenile
Uh-huh.
diabetes, as they would call it then, before even type 1. It was called considered a juvenile. They would have just put you with like adult doctors and seeing those professionals instead of linking you with a juvenile or type 1, because it was predominantly seen as a middle to upper class white person disease.
Yeah, because I remember back then my doctor explained, he handed my mother a book and it had the percentages of white children and black children and other with type 1.
And
And
you were
we
slim to
were
none.
small, it was small.
Right. And you were again 9,
10.
10. Okay, 10. So you were headed into the fifth grade,
6.
sixth grade. Okay.
Hmm.
You have a late birthday?
January.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're
January.
you're headed into the sixth grade. That's a great transition in life, going from elementary to middle school, um,
Yeah.
fifth to
Well,
sixth grade.
I was lucky because my elementary school went from K to 8. So I only
Uh,
went to two schools, elementary and high. And I remember after being diagnosed that September, I went to school and the teacher, his name was Mr. Alpern. And you know how you have to get up and discuss what you did over the summer?
mhm.
Well, he got to me. He said, "Little Miss Gordon, what did you do over the summer?" And I didn't know what to say. I was in the hospital. So I whispered in his ear and told him I was in the hospital. And he already had my records because my mother, before school, she met with the principal and she discussed that I was in the hospital over the summer. And she gave him information for emergencies and everything. But the teacher already knew. And when I whispered in his ear, he called me to his desk afterwards and he suggested that I talk about my summer vacation the following week and I incorporate diabetes with all the lessons and share with the kids about diabetes. So we went to American Diabetes Association. They gave us pamphlets in layman terms for sixth graders. They gave us posters. And I remember I had a cigar box with a cotton ball, a needle, and an empty vial of insulin. I had glucose tablets and a chart. And I returned the following week. And the teacher, he even brought in slides that because his mother had type 2. And so I taught the lesson, and someone from the American Diabetes Association came to my class, and we just taught the lesson together, and the kids um, asked questions. And one question by all the girls was, "Oh, if she has to go to the bathroom, can we go with her?" That was their way to get out of class. So anytime I had to go to the bathroom, everybody would raise their hand. Ooh, may I go?
So even during a time where we know predominantly people of color, like not only were there stigmas placed upon
Mhm,
us, but also when it comes to medical care,
mhm,
it was more hindered. Like we had a lot of things. It was more so because we're bought from we came up through a struggle, where our not only our ancestors, our modern day people like yourselves, like your family, like it was so much we had to struggle and fight for. So when it comes to health, our own health, like it's not something that we've always like promoted or brought to the
mhm,
forefront. But at that time, 1972, you as a 10-year-old, like you were prepared. And it sounds as though because of that encouragement from your teacher at that time, like he basically told you it's okay. And your family sounds as though they equally told you it's okay.
mhm.
We're going to normalize what is living with diabetes.
Yeah, it was hard though. I, before before the interview, I was thinking back when I was diagnosed, and I said, "Oh, I said the refrigerator was my refuge, not for eating. Whenever something, a program came on about type 1 diabetes, I would go behind the refrigerator and cry. I would just go behind. I would just leave the room. Um, wait, are you familiar with Dr. Welby?
Nah, you said out of
Dr.
Philadelphia?
Welby is a TV show.
Oh, doctor.
Yeah, it was with Robert Young and James Brolin. I don't know if you'll be able to watch it on Netflix, but it's called Dr. Welby, MD. He was a general practitioner. He had the best bedside manners. He helped you with everything. I mean, there was at the end of the show, everything worked out with the patients. There was always a happy ending. He made house calls. If people had financial problems, if they needed food, you name it, he helped. And he had a receptionist named Consuelo, and I forget his assistant. He had this young, handsome assistant. But one episode, it came on while I was in the hospital, and I actually looked the episode up. It's called, oh boy, Dr. Welby. Oh, it was in two parts. It was called Prisoner of the Island Cell.
Prisoner of the Island Cell.
Yeah, Dr. Welby. And it
And
aired, mhm,
what was that episode?
it was
Um,
about a 10-year-old, I think she was 10. She had diabetes. It happened to come on while I was in the hospital.
you think that hospital set that up?
No, I don't think so. It came on ABC. Yeah, I
Okay.
remember it came on Channel 6.
I was about to say pulled out the VHS, but that was 1972. I'm like, it may have been a real.
Oh no, it was on the hospital. It was on TV. Dr. Welby came on every Tuesday,
Okay.
and I happened to watch it, and I started crying because he said, "Oh, she can go blind. Oh, this can happen. Oh." They talked about amputation. He said, "But
Mhm.
no, I'm going to help you. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen." Um, I just sat in that bed and cried. And the nurse came in and she turned it off. And it was just a coincidence. It came on while I was in the hospital. Then when I come released from the hospital, on Channel 6 News, they featured a little boy, 12 years old, who had diabetes since birth. And they were talking about how he lost sight in one eye. Then I looked, I left the room, went behind the refrigerator. I was behind that refrigerator so many times it wasn't even funny. Nobody even knew. I would just get up and disappear and just go into the kitchen and stand on the side of the refrigerator.
The refrigerator was your place of like recluse. It was like
Yeah.
the place where you can go. And I mean, 1972, the refrigerator may have ran a little loud.
Yeah, maybe.
It may have purred a little bit, like "Rrr." So you could go behind that refrigerator and bawl your eyes out.
Hmm.
And right now, like I'm so saddened for 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old Monique
Hmm.
because as a young lady at those ages,
Hmm.
that's when a big part of you is transitioning into your young womanhood. And like I know like you had the emotions of diabetes because I mean back then, I mean even though that testing kit told you when you had ketones or your blood sugar was high, we know today that it wasn't really reliable.
Yeah, it wasn't reliable.
So you may have been going through the emotional burdens of diabetes because your blood sugar may have been like running a little bit higher because like the testing was inadequate and you had the typical young pre-adolescent like emotions and all of that going on.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm saddened for you, Monique. Like
Yeah.
going behind that refrigerator, it must like like if you've ever had a dog or like a pet and they do something that they're not supposed to do and you yell at them and they go running like and hiding behind like the sofa or whatever or go underneath of it.
Hmm.
Like diabetes was yelling at you.
Hmm.
It was and you were going behind that refrigerator. How did anyone ever find you behind that refrigerator?
Nope. I didn't go. It was, he have a space on the side.
Mhm.
I went right on the side of the refrigerator. No one even knew. Until this day, no one even knew.
They know now.
They,
And
yeah.
someone's going to listen to this, Monique, and they're going to be like, I'm going to go on the side of the refrigerator because there's an emotional attachment that
Uh-huh.
everyone living with type 1 diabetes has with each other. We can all we all have moments where we just bawled out. Like even as adults, we have those moments at times where we're like the emotions of just thinking about the years of living with this, even though we've conquered it, we've built a strong community, things like that over the years, but just knowing that we've had this burden for so long, it's like it's emotionally it affects us in ways that other people truly wouldn't understand or realize.
Uh-huh. And this is a funny story. My sisters, they used to call me Nightgown, Little Miss Nightgown, because I told my mother I was never going out. And so I had her to buy me all these different nightgowns, like short ones, long ones, uh, PJ shorts. And I used to just told her I was staying in the house and never going out. So every time my sister would come in the room, I would have a different pair of PJs, one for every day. And they said, "Are you just going to stay home in the nightgown?" And my mother was so overprotective. "Oh, she's so fine. She's fine. Leave her alone." And I just had frilly nightgowns. And I would just come home from school, put them on. I didn't even go out. And till one day I went to the doctor and he said, "Do you want to go to camp?" And my mother turned and said, "No." And he said, he said, he told her, he said, I'm not asking you. So he's asked her because she waited outside. He asked her if she could wait outside. So she waited outside. And he took out the camp forms. He already had it filled out. And he said, do you want to go to camp? I said, yes. And so I put yes. And he took an ink pad. He said, put your finger on here. And that was my little signature. He said, they'll sign your name next to it. And then he took it to my mother. And he said, she's going to camp. My mother said, I didn't give her permission. He said, I'm giving her permission. And
He
that's
was
how I went to camp.
he was
And
trying
I went,
to give
yeah.
you a sense of like reality and normalize what was living with diabetes.
Uh-huh.
But for your
And,
mother, you're her baby.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. And she was given all the injections. And the doctor said, wait, who gives injections? My mother said, I do. And he said, she's supposed to do it. That's for another reason. So he sent me to camp. So when I went to camp, all the girls in the cabin, they showed me how I can inject it in my back arm, and my stomach, and my thigh. They showed me all types of tricks.
What camp was that?
It was Camp Firefly. I even remember the song, but I can't sing, so I'm not going to sing it. But I even remember the song. I remember all the songs.
Mhm. Oh, you did you go there for multiple years?
I went there 2 weeks every summer, and I went for 3 years. Three years. Then I took a summer off, and I took vacation with one of the campers. We became good friends. So we used to hang out and visit each other during the summer.
So even at such a young age where a lot of people hid chronic health conditions, once you were able to get out there in the what I consider the free world with your
Hmm.
people, get out there with
Hmm.
your people, and it didn't matter the race, the religion, none of those
Hmm.
things, because y'all had a lifelong connection in diabetes that only you understood. Once you were able to get out there with your community, you were able to open your mind and just be free.
Yeah. And for $18, you can get a round trip ticket to New York. 18,
This sounds like a promo for
$18.
$18. You could get
Yeah.
it.
We used to, and two, there were,
That's
there
where
were
Camp
two,
Firefly was in New York.
no, we used to
Oh,
visit one of our roommates, one of the other campers. She lived in New York. So her mother called my mother and said, hey, can Monique come to New York for the weekend? Left that Friday, stayed to that Sunday. And my mother, she said, I'll meet him at the train station. So
hmm.
it was two other girls. We all got met at the Amtrak train station. Our parents were there. We got on an Amtrak train. That's when you could trust kids, and it was safer then. All three of us got on a train. We were about 15, got on the train, and her parent met us at the station in New York. We stayed for the whole weekend.
Look, and you while you're saying that and saying it was safer, I'm like, it was safer, but I'm still thinking of like the prolific New York serial killers
Oh yeah,
of the
but
70s and stuff.
oh
I'm
yeah, but
like,
we were on the train when we got off. Her parent was right there
okay.
at the station.
Yeah, that was funny. But yeah, so y'all diabetes brought you together. Diabetes was as much as it was a hassle and
Hmm.
frightening, it was a plus also for you.
Hmm.
And when I tell people that today, like everyone goes through burden, living with diabetes, burnout, all of those things. And I tell people that today I truly don't go through the stages of burnout that I did when I was younger. I said, and it's mostly due to community. being able not only to help people, but being able to communicate with people, being able to see people going through the same things and alleviate a lot of their stressors as alleviate my own stressors. Like
Hmm.
it helps me. So like I truly don't deal with a lot of the burnout that others go through because I as soon as I found community, I realized like I don't have to hide diabetes anymore.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many years did you go to that camp?
3.
Three.
I went 3 years.
And the way you speak of it, it sounds as though you went to it for like 5 to 10 years.
Oh yeah,
Because
I we did everything. We even made cake on an open fire. We
Monique,
made a pound cake
the
from scratch.
the smile you have on your face, it makes me think like, where was the camp for when you were an older teen and an adult, a young
You
adult?
know what? They do have one for old people with diabetes who was older. Is camp is diabetes spelled backwards?
Oh,
And it's in, I think it's in Pennsylvania, but there
I
is a camp
I know there's
for.
one in New Jersey, Camp
Uh-huh.
Something like that. It's like in middle New Jersey.
Mhm.
Yeah, we should plan a camp outing.
Yeah, we should
Mm.
plan one.
Mhm. So none of do you still have any communication with your friends from camp at all?
One lives in New York. Um, Not so much, but I said, sit by the window. She said she was waiting for your return.
And her nightgown.
Oh, I took all those nightgowns to camp. When I took them out the suitcase, they would laugh because I had square slippers, like the little Japanese slippers, and I
Mhm.
had a kimono robe. They said, "Where the heck are you going?"
You're like this is a part of me. This is what I do.
This is
This
part
is
of
how
me.
I handle diabetes.
They said, and I used to walk around with square slippers and a kimono.
Want to go out after school. Um, it probably meant that you had to do so many things outside of the house, outside of the bathroom, all like, and for you as a kid, again, 10 years old, and your mom knowing that what she had to do to keep you well, and her may not even knowing other families, other parents that were going through and dealing with the same thing, it probably for both of y'all felt like it was best just for Monique to stay in the house.
Yeah, my sister said, "Well, she left for things she needed to do, but when she got back, she was sick." And they would joke. They said, "Are you thinking about that girl again?"
Where do you sit in you said five sisters, so it's six of
I'm
you
the
all.
last.
Oh, you're
I'm
the
the last.
baby. That's why.
Hmm.
Okay. I understand. Your mother wasn't being overprotective. You were her baby. And what's the age gap between you and your oldest sister?
Maybe 10.
Okay. That's a lot.
Hmm.
That's a lot. So your oldest sister, by the time you were diagnosed, was an adult.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was she? Yeah, she was an adult.
Hmm. I was wondering if when you started unpacking and everything, your mom was just thinking like, how did this girl manage her diabetes without me?
Yeah, that's what she. Oh, she even called the camp. A lot of parents called the camp.
Hmm. They
And then when I went to the infirmary, the doctor said your mother called. Like that's how he said it. Oh, I said, what did she say? Oh, the usual. I said, what did you say? He said, "Oh, I told her you were fine." He said, "I didn't tell her that you fell. I didn't tell her that we had to bandage you up."
Those were camp wars.
Yeah.
um, was your doctor actually? Was it your doctor that was at the camp?
No.
Okay.
The camp was 2 weeks. So doctors, there was a doctor from CHOP, a doctor, but not my doctor. There were interns from CHOP, not only CHOP, from Temple, from Jefferson. Even the counselors were med students. Some of the counselors were going to school for nursing. Other counselors had diabetes just like me. We had art teachers. We had an art teacher. She was from Temple. She didn't have diabetes, but she went through the training.
So it was a regular camp.
No, it was a camp for kids with
No.
diabetes.
I'm saying it was a regular
Oh,
camp, like typical. You did the typical camp things.
oh yeah, we did. We went canoeing. We had archery. We had swimming. We had talent night. We had movie night. We had cooking class. We had nutrition. There was a psychologist there, so we would talk about diabetes, what we didn't like, how to get through it.
Talk about going on the side of that refrigerator.
Yeah.
Because as I tell everyone in this space, when we are diagnosed with a chronic health condition such as type 1 diabetes, we get all of the physical trainings and everything, but we also need mental and emotional health and support as well.
Yeah.
Because little Monique didn't have to go on the side of that refrigerator. She didn't have to stay in her room in those nightgowns.
Oh, I didn't stay in my room. I was all around the house. Listen, I was
Okay.
painting, writing. I did homework in my nightgown. And when it was time to go to bed, I would put on a new one.
It was just like if anybody came by and knocked on that door, it was like, Monique, can you come? I'm already in my PJs.
Yeah. And my sisters would come home and they would just look and shake their heads.
So those were your middle school years. So
No, that nightgown wearing only lasted not even a year, maybe about 6 months.
okay.
Yeah, about 6 months.
And then you went outside.
And then I went outside.
And
It sounds like a book.
look, I told you when I first got on with you that our friend Brunetta told me like you had the stories, and I'm like I want to get into these chapters. So that first chapter was the diagnosis. That second chapter was you in the nightgowns. The third, and your mom like staying in. The third chapter is you going off to camp. And now it seems as though now you came back from camp. We're about to lead into this fourth chapter, which is of you being more outwardly able to deal with and handle diabetes, because now you went to camp and now you're home with diabetes. Your mom is looking at you like, how did she do this on her own? And now you're about to tell her and show the world how Monique can handle this.
Mhm.
So how was that?
And then, yeah. How was that when I got back?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I had the freedom to do more. I had the freedom to do more. I wasn't as frightened. Plus, I had all my camp buddies. So we correspond through letters and phone calls. And sometimes we met up.
So you had pen pals now. Today's young people have no clue what that is.
Oh, no.
I remember having the pen pals when I was in like fourth and fifth grade, like pen pals all around the world, like sending letters to kids in China and Germany, because that's where I was born, because my dad was in the military. And I remember I had a pen pal in Germany.
You were diagnosed in Germany or
Oh, no,
in
no, I was diagnosed in Delaware.
Okay. How did you find out?
How did I find out? My dad told me I was diabetic
Ah.
because I told him one day, I came to him and was like, I can't stop using the bathroom and I'm so thirsty. And it got so bad to the point where I was like sleeping in a bathroom in the tub.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, he looked straight at me and was like, you're a diabetic. So, I mean, I believe whatever my dad said, and just had and getting that diagnosis just relieved so much stress off of me because I felt like I was dying. It's
Yeah.
when you before you were diagnosed, do you remember those symptoms and everything?
Oh yeah. Like for instance, when I reflect, I remember before being diagnosed, a couple of months before that, I I was standing in the kitchen and my sister was pouring juice. And as she would pour it, I would grab the glass and drink it. Then she turned around. She said, "What happened to my juice?" Well, it was the five of us, and then it was maybe a friend was over. So she thought, well, maybe they took the juice. Then she poured another glass, and I would drink that. I remember drinking it. I remember just standing behind her. Every time she would pour, I would grab a glass. And she thought nothing of it. And she said, the glass is this. And then she would get another glass and pour it.
Now, was this sister like someone? Was she close to you in age?
No,
No.
she was my sister who was next to the oldest. And she kept pouring and pouring, but she just would think, well, there's five of us, three friends are over. Maybe one of them took it. Or then she thought maybe they took it into the living room to my mother. Or maybe they took it and gave it to this person. She didn't know what was going on. All she knew was that the glasses kept disappearing.
I have, I don't know how much you're familiar with this podcast, but as I speak with people, I try to figure out a title for it. And I have so many different titles right now because I'm telling you, you have stories. Like the first title I wrote down was Lemonade. But then I wrote
Mm-hmm.
Sad Behind the Refrigerator. Then I wrote Sat by the Window, Camp Firefly. Um,
Uh-huh.
then I have The Saddest Lemonade. Like, uh,
You'll think of
change.
something.
Yeah, I have so many different titles because like you just told me like about spilling the juice, and I'm like, where
Yeah.
can I incorporate that? But yeah, so I do want to transition into like you said, you doing this on your own. You were handling. At what age did you begin handling diabetes on your own?
Mm-hmm. 10, 11, about 12.
About 12.
12. But I can share. Well, you'll learn. This is how, from this poem, you'll realize how I was able to handle it on my own until this. Well, my mother's deceased, but she never knew this. Neither did my father. And this is titled Pandora's White Box.
Is this a poem written by you?
Mm-hmm. I wrote it a couple of years ago because I remembered it so clear.
All right, so I'm going to audience. This is a poem by Monique, person who has been living with type 1 diabetes for 52 years. Monique.
Okay. Pandora's White Box. My father placed a white box of cookies, courtesy of Mrs. Molino, on top of the fridge, then said, "I'll give you 2 cookies when I return." As soon as he left the house, I ran to the spoon rest, grabbed a wooden spoon, stood on the stool, slid the butter-stained, fruity-smelling box towards me, held it, massaged it, tiptoed to the table, used a fork to unlock the double-knotted twine, flipped the lid, a treasure. a three-tier, two-doily separation of pleated white cups stacked with amaretto, biscotti, cannoli, lemon drop, chocolate drop, egg drop, Italian small sweets. Tasting each one, play became pastime. I disappeared, reappeared, disappeared, reappeared, untie, retie, untie, inhale, Anison, apricot, almond extract. Ah, stuffed my mouth, shifted the sweets, given an illusion the cups were still full. I tested my pee for ketones. Poof! One drop of pee magically turned a white pill, pastel pink, then dark purple. I tested my pee for glucose. Poof! One dip strip magically turned mint green, then murky brown. I fudged the urine test in my medical journal. Negative, trace, 2 plus, 3 plus, 1 plus, trace, 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 steps back to the fridge. I tested and retested, injected 2 units of insulin in thigh, in arms, in belly, then butt, drank water, jumped rope, hula hoop, danced under a mystical trance while lowering my sugar. That sly Mrs. Molino should have only sent me 2.
That is like the biography of you.
Yeah, so I was in the kitchen all alone with a box of cookies.
And it was just tempting you.
It was tempting. And I remember I had a scale that the doctor had given me when I took the classes. I was taking classes with other kids at Children's Hospital. And it was how to administer insulin according to your urine sugar. They didn't have the blood sugars, but 2 units should help. So I had so much sugar floating around in my bloodstream. Every time I tested, it was bright orange. So I said, oh, 2 units will help. And I put 2 units in my arm. Then I would wait maybe 2 hours. It was still bright orange. Then I said, okay, 2 more units. That's not going to hurt. Just 2 units. Then I said, let me rotate over here.
You had to get those cookies.
I had to get those cookies. And I was just shuffling them. And I said, oh boy, I can't let them know that they're going. I said, let me put some. Oh, I was just mixing and matching cookies and moving the little doilies all around the bin.
You were a kid. It reminds me of the blue tin of those butter cookies with the sugar all on them.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. Like you're trying to rearrange them. I remember doing that with my grandmom's cookies. Like she can't tell that cookies been missed out of this. That's funny.
But I think if you count 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4 cookies or 3 cookies in each cup. Yeah, I think it's about maybe 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah. So you ate a whole basement.
Let me see. I don't even know how long I was in the kitchen. I was just dancing around. It was just me and the cookies. Like my father just said, I'll give you 2 when I come back. But he didn't think. I left the box. I left her in the kitchen with the box. No one else is down here but Monique and the cookies.
Look, you were dancing around, so that was helping bring down that blood sugar a little bit. A little bit, even though it was bright orange. And that just takes me back and makes me think like, wow, today a lot of people they get like rowdy and up in arms when certain things of technology aren't working in their favor. And just to know that you came of age. Like this was your coming of age story, being diagnosed with diabetes and having to learn and adjust and learn and adjust and learn and adjust. And then even after you've learned and adjusted, having to ball that paper up, toss it out as new technology and new advancements have came. Like you've been a part of this whole story because like things such as the JDRF didn't come about until the mid 1970s, and
Juvenile
that
diabetes.
yeah,
Yeah. When did? Oh, we had an office right in Philadelphia on City. Wait, it was
City
in
Ave.
Conshohocken.
Oh,
It's not there anymore. They moved it further out. But we had an office in Conshohocken.
right. So a lot of the research and stuff into bettering technology, the advancements in insulin, all of those things, like you were a part of all of that. Like that was your life, and it just makes me think like how like I wonder like how was that transitioning process for you and for your mom, for your family, as they were like, okay, we're done using beef and pork insulin, now you're going to be using MPH and regular.
Hmm. What was that? Oh, I don't even remember. Was that in the 80s? I
Early,
need
I
to.
think MPH and regular came about, I think, like 1978, if I'm
78. That's right. Okay. I
so
have to look
a
at my
lot of people
timeline.
didn't start using it until the early 80s, like 81,
Hmm.
82.
Yeah. I remember when I got my insulin pump, though. That was in 2000.
So
That was in
that
2000.
was after 28 years.
Yeah. I remember when I got the first glucose meter. Oh, that was heavy. It was this big.
And it probably hurt. It had that jab or that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You finger bled for a while.
Mm.
I remember that. And I remember when the hemoglobin A1C came out because I went to the doctor and the doctor said, Monique, I said, yes, you can stop erasing those bad blood sugars
From your
because
journal.
he already knew that he would look at the book and he would just shake his head because he had the A1C.
What was that, late 80s?
No, it
Mid?
wasn't late 80s. It was, I must have been about 14.
Okay.
I was about 14.
Okay. So late 70s.
Yeah, late 70s. That's when I went into the office and he told me to stop erasing those numbers. I thought if I erased it, they would disappear. And I would just
Everyone did it. Everyone
or
did it.
throw a book away. But they say guys tell the truth.
Mm.
Females tend to fudge because they like everything perfect. So I was told.
Look, everyone everyone thought that they were beating the system.
Yeah.
Like serious, like not
And then
knowing.
when they said males tend to tell the truth more, I said, "Oh, for once, males tell the truth." All the and I
Maybe
have,
at a younger age, at that younger
yeah,
age, because female matured more, especially mentally, females matured quicker than young men. So at that young age, like you as a woman, a young woman, had the concept of like, okay, I need to be perfect. So I'm going to
yeah,
fudge this, like you said.
yeah.
And a young man at 12
Say
or
it is
13,
what it is.
yep. So we're just like, okay, I'm just going to, like, I can't change this. So this was the number. That's what it was. But you at that age, 14, you're like, the doctor says that six is a good number. So I'm going to write a six in this journal.
Yeah.
Right.
Then,
Do you remember when you first got your first A1C test?
oh yeah,
Was
that's when
our
I was 14 or 14.
The early years of those A1Cs.
Yeah, that's how he knew I was fibbing because my first A1C was about 8. And that's what he knew the test I was writing in my book. The negative 4 plus trace. I would throw in a couple of 4 pluses, but I would put in good, nothing but good numbers. Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Then,
remember early on putting in those good numbers in that journal also. And this for me was in the early 2000s. I remember putting in those numbers and having to take them to my, this was my primary care at the time, taking them to him. And I remember the first time taking that journal to him and how he looked at me. And from that moment on, I was like, I'm not even going to write in this journal anymore. He's going to have to figure it out since he
well,
has
I
the
used to
back.
wait. I used to wait the night before my doctor's appointment, stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, making up numbers. When I was like 12, 13, I would be, my mother said, why is that light on? And I said, oh, I just forgot something. And I would have the flashlight and I would open a journal and I would just make up, oh boy, I would make up 3 months worth of numbers.
Look, you're 13, 14, and you already got to handle everything else that the regular
Yeah.
young lady has to deal with. And on top of that, you got to deal with your blood sugar and all of that. Like now I have to write every single thing down in this journal. Like, no, like you may have had your own personal diary where you were basically cussing diabetes out
Yeah.
sometimes.
I think it changed when I turned 17. When I turned 17, that's when I started getting myself together. Yeah.
And what you think brought about that change? Was it just maturity?
I think maturity, and I started painting and writing. And I said, oh boy, if I don't take care of myself, who's going to be able to, how am I going to be able to finish my craft? How am I going to meet up with my friends? Or I learned to sew. So I made a coat. I said, oh, if I get sick and something happened to me, I won't be able to wear this coat I just made. And I was proud of that coat. So
So
I said, oh.
you're an artist, Monique.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't
I paint. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to share with me some of your stuff like at another time because
Yeah.
that's art is my passion. Like
Yeah.
I do this stuff for community because I truly love speaking with our people and normalizing
Mm-hmm.
what is living with diabetes, but writing, painting,
Yeah.
um, all of those
And
things.
I rest TNR cats.
Okay.
Trap, neuter, and release. I work
Is
with an organization, Saving Cats, and I have a dog. I rescued a dog. She's right by my side right now.
so you do it all, everything that you love to do.
Yeah. Oh, have anyone ever? I just met a young lady. She's about 21 at the doctor's office yesterday, and she told me she was diagnosed in 2017. I think she was diagnosed when she was about 12. And she asked me, do people ask you stupid questions?
There's no stupid question.
No, she mean out the public. I said, not only that, people have made some statements that don't even deserve an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, what do you do? And I said, it depends. I might answer it and I might not. And I wrote a list. I actually made it into a song, like I called it doo-wop blues. Like I said, I can't sing.
But
So
you
I went to an
make
event.
jingles.
Yeah, and someone else, I had this background. I had a group on one side. They would whisper, you got diabetes, with a harmony. And I would mention something absurd that someone would say to me, and it goes, "You got diabetes. Child, you so nice and strong, so nice and small. You sure look healthy to me." And then it said, "You got diabetes. You'll lose those kidneys, then go blind. You got diabetes. You'll lose your mind. You got diabetes. Are you still alive?" People actually said this to me. And "You got a dog. Is he seeing eye?
Mhm.
You got diabetes. You carry a cane. Child, diabetes made you lame." That's when I went to the stem cell research convention and I fell off the bus. So I came back with a cast, had surgery, and had to use a cane until my ankle healed. And so the first thing they see me with a cane, oh, something must have happened. And somebody asked me, "Did sugar go to your foot?" I said, "What?" I said, "No, I broke my leg." I broke. Um, oh, then this is actually so. This is supposed to be. This is a childhood friend of mine from school. Just about maybe 8 years ago, she said this to me, and I didn't answer her. She said, "You." She said, "Oh yeah, you have diabetes." And I said, "You always knew." She
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, well, I planned a road trip, but I decided not to come. I know you have diabetes, but do you go out in the rain?" And I looked at her. I said, "That's
Huh?
it." She said, "What?" She
What?
said, "Do you go?" She's like more
I'm
of an
trying to put
acquaintance.
this. I'm trying to put this together. Like, you got diabetes? Do you go out in the rain?
Yeah, because it was raining hard. So she said, "Do you go out in the rain?" And I said, "You notice I don't call you." She said, "Yeah, I've been waiting to ask you that." I said, "Because sometimes you make
You,
statements that I just don't understand." And a teacher, I was telling her what happened. She said, "Well, I'm gonna share something with you." She said, "I went trick or treating with my son, and the parent said to her, 'What's wrong, sweetie? Did the sugar get your foot?' And then she said, with new technology, the doc will cut it off and get you a tin one."
whoa.
And I said, uh, I even had a neighbor ask me, he said, "You got diabetes?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, my eyes are blurry. What should I do?"
I
And
don't
I
know.
said, "I don't know." I said, "Go to your doctor." I said,
Monique, I'm going to need you to write these down. You got diabetes and have these like slogans, and we're going to create shirts or something.
"Oh, here's the other one. Thank God you have diabetes and not my car note."
Oh, can you do me a favor? Can you email me these? Like, because that's going to bring some awareness.
And I said, "Wait." I said, "What does your car note have to do with my diabetes?" Um, she said, "Well, my car note is $400 a month." I said, "But you chose a car. You chose a car. You can easily ride the bus or the train. I didn't choose this disease."
Or she can
So
stay in her
she,
bedroom in a nightgown.
yeah. So she told me, "At least I don't have a car note." And I sat there and I thought, she said, "What's wrong?" I said, I said, "Repeat what you said to yourself."
You're trying to process it. Like,
And so, and then I ended with silence, my answer to DWAP blues. Sometimes if it's so ridiculous, I don't answer. I just don't answer people.
mhm.
You may have the person. I went to the doctor. They said I have pre-diabetes. What should I eat? I said, well, why didn't you ask the doctor while you were sitting in the office?
This reminds me, I had a conversation with with a young lady, a 10-year-old, that I recorded with. I recorded with her sister also. They both have type 1 diabetes. I recorded with one in March and one in June. And a question towards the tail end, the young lady asked, because she's going into middle school now, into sixth grade, she asked, how should she go about telling people that she has diabetes? And I explained to her, I said, first you got to think of the importance of the conversation you're having with people. I said, is this a friend? Is this someone who you consider someone who will respect the conversations that you have and the time that you put into these conversations? And she said, well, some of them are, she's like, some of them are just like nasty people or people who I don't like or whatnot. And I said,
Yeah, so
that I wouldn't waste my energy with those people, just like you wouldn't conversate with them about anything else. I said, the nasty people, the people who are going to judge you no matter what, then you don't have to explain your diabetes to them. I said, just the people who you love, the people who you care for. Those are the only ones that you have to have those conversations with, because those other people, they're going to be nasty regardless of what you say.
yeah. Yeah, some of this happened long ago, maybe 20 years ago, all those comments. I don't have conversations with them about diabetes or anything else, but I just, whenever someone says something, I take a note, write it in a journal. And they always say to me, what are you writing? I said, I'm writing what you just said. So I just had a book of them. I would just write every time they would make a comment, or if I overheard a comment. Like there are two men on the bus. One man said, I just left my mother's house and she forced me to eat pie. And I'm just sitting there listening and I'm writing it down. And the other man said, yeah, I have the sugar too. I have to eat candy. I said, you have? I guess he meant when his sugar's low,
Mhm.
he needs candy. And so I need to get a good look at these two people. So when I get off the bus, I look. I said, oh my God, they're in their 70s. And their mother is forcing them to eat pretzels and potato chips. And my sister said, she just laughed. She said, you know what? I can't even answer that question. I don't have a comment.
Right.
And I
Hey,
came to the conclusion they didn't force them to eat it. They thought because this is their mother
that they
that they can't say
no,
no.
I got you.
I did an interview on living with diabetes. It was impromptu. I was just walking down the street and two people from YBE station decided to do an interview on diabetes. Well, a lot of people in Philadelphia saw it. So when I had a hypo, this woman recognized me from the video from Channel 12. And she said, you have diabetes? Oh, and she said, you had it since you were age 10. She said, my husband has diabetes. You need sugar. She said, and she happened to live across the street from the theater. So she escorted me to her step, went into the house, came out with sugar cubes, and was giving me the sugar cubes, and she was talking about the interview. And after that, the Philadelphia Inquirer did a story on it. It was called Thank You for Watching. And they talk about communication and people who are visual and pay attention to their surroundings, and how this woman recognized me from a 5-minute interview, and she was able to help me.
Look, I have to write that down because I'm going to look for that story. Thank you for watching Philadelphia Inquirer.
Oh, that was from 2004.
Look,
What
you
I
even
can
know,
do,
you even know the year.
2004, I can
20
scan it.
years.
I can scan it and send it to you. I actually have the article.
Look, so we have that to send to me and those quotes.
Oh, I don't think you want to put those quotes on a shirt.
I do, seriously.
What? And someone looks at it and just say, they will think it's true.
Nah, it'll have them asking questions. Yeah. And so, as we wrap down, I have three things I just wanted to go through. Has diabetes stopped you from anything?
No.
No.
No, it hasn't. No. I know people hate to see me when I come to visit. Not really hate. They just have a picnic laughing because when I come, they said, "How long are you staying?" I said, 3 days. I will have a week's worth of supplies with me. They said, "Do you really need that many boxes?" I have a suitcase. When I travel, I go overboard. I
You
think I'm
have
gonna I think I'm gonna be stranded. I might be kidnapped, held hostage, and I'm just gonna
look,
need extra supplies.
and I think about the same things. Like, I was telling someone the other day. I said, "Do you remember Castaway, the Tom Hanks film? Like
Yeah.
Wilson?" I said, "Nah." I said, "I need to be prepared." I remember me and my wife took a Bahamas cruise. I think it was like a 5-day cruise. This was 2012, and I got stopped at the port authority because I had so much insulin on me, and the dog could smell it. The guy was like, "You're hiding something. You got drugs on you, contraband." And I'm like, "No, I don't. All I had was a couple boxes of pens." Yeah, but the dog didn't. I guess the dog didn't know no different. He was like, "It's drugs." And I want to ask you, do you have any advice that you can gift to the community? Someone who's either newly diagnosed or someone who's been living with type 1 diabetes for a while and maybe struggling with it?
I suggest before going online and looking for a community online, support groups. I don't know if hospitals still have it. I know where I go, they still have them once a month. They also have classes, and there's always someone in the class who can assist you. You'll always find a person who you can talk to. There's always, besides the nutritionist, there's always a person.
There's always a person. There's you.
Yeah, there's me, but
You can be that person.
I don't know everything. And like I
I
said,
know.
I learned actually the man who is on the kidney diet, the patient on the kidney diet, he's 80 years old. He had diabetes since he was 16. He still rides a bicycle. He
He's
rides a
had
bicycle.
he's had diabetes longer than you've been living.
Since I had
64 years.
Yeah, 64 years. He's been on the isolate transplant. He's back on the pump, but he's updated on all the information. And besides talking to people, talking to your doctor, have a list of questions before you go to the doctor. Some people say, "Oh, well, the visit is short." It's short if you make it short. If you don't have your questions prepared, you can stay in there longer than that 30 minutes.
Mhm.
The insurance only allots 30 minutes. It's not the doctor rushing you, it's the insurance company that allots the 30 minutes.
Look, and when
But
I go to
if,
my endocrinology appointments, they're always 45 minutes to an
yeah,
hour. And my doctors and my nurse practitioners, they just love sitting down talking to me.
oh yeah,
I,
but they
I,
will talk. You just
I,
have to have the,
I give them more information than they give me.
yeah, you just have to, after the visit, and they say, do you have any concerns or questions? Always have questions. Always have questions. Not questions you know the answer to, but questions that have been on your mind.
And you just dropped something in between. Even though I was trying to wrap up, you said that guy, that 80-year-old, was on an islet transplant.
Mm-hmm.
So
Is
he
it
went.
isolate? Isolate.
It's
Is it
it's pronounced islet, but yeah.
islet?
So he did he go through the transplant or did he get like the
Yes.
placebo?
He was on it for 11 years and then it
For
stopped working.
for real?
He didn't take insulin for 11 years.
Wow, that's the most I've heard. I've heard some like 5 to 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he and,
11.
he,
Yeah.
and he's a local guy.
Yeah, he's a good local guy.
Off air, I gotta learn
Very
him.
energetic. I have gone to Christmas parties with this guy.
Off air, you can tell me who he is. Like,
Yeah.
and lastly, I wrap every conversation up with this because you've been living with type 1 diabetes for 52 years. I've been living with it for 21 years. The friend you just mentioned has been living with it for 64 years. Although to the, I guess to the people on the outside looking at us, everything is all fine and dandy for the most part because we handle and we manage this ourselves. But at the same time, there are burdens. There are times when we just had to pause and stop and say to ourselves, I can't do that right now. Even though we've pushed ourselves to doing things. There's times when diabetes has shown up and we couldn't tell it to chill, relax. We had to consume some fast acting carbs, or we may have been walking with our dog or whatever and not had something on us. Different things. So I must ask you, Monique, even though you were diagnosed in 1972, and I know a lot of times people talk about they've been told 5 years, a cure.
Yeah.
I've never been told that, but on the day, because we see today what modern technology, the advancements in smarter insulin and things like that. Today, if a cure was here, like a full cure, and
Mm-hmm.
type 1 diabetes, insulin dependence is no longer needed, on that day, what do you do
On that day.
when you find out you no longer have diabetes?
I don't know what I would do. I would just be happy. Someone asked me that question. No, I wouldn't go get a gigantic piece of cake. No, I wouldn't eat everything in sight. I would just be elated. That's it.
Probably just smile, like smile and look
I
at
would just be elated because somebody asked me, "You wouldn't want cake?" I said, "I'm not denying cake. I can
right.
eat cake, but nobody should eat a hunk of cake." I said, "I'm fine with this. I'm fine with a small piece of cake that won't affect my blood sugar. A tiny piece. I don't need a country size slice of cake." I said, "I would just be happy not to have to store a place for insulin, not to find a place for my supplies. I look like a pharmacy in here. I don't want to look for a place to put my syringes, my tubing. Where am I putting the boxes? You know, you have to make extra space for this. I don't want to have to travel and carry extra cargo.
And you don't have to prep for a nap.
I don't want to prep. I don't want
You
to.
don't have
Oh, I will have a sound sleep. I won't wake up because I
right,
have a low.
right. You don't have
I
to
will
prep
be.
for a
I
nap.
just.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just thankful that I won't have to do these things. I can walk my dog. My dog won't have to wait for me. So one time she looked at me, okay, do you have everything? I said, oh, I forgot the water. I forgot glucose tablets. Wait a minute, I'll be back. I forgot this. Oh, let me take the insulin on ice. Oh, let me get a charger. Let me get a protein. Okay. One time I was packing. I packed everything for the dog and not for me. My sister said, I hope your dog knows how to dial 911. I said, why? Because you packed everything for the dog, but you packed nothing for yourself. And I said, oh, yeah, let me go back. And the dog is sighing. When are we going out? And I had to pack stuff for me, stuff for the dog, and then we went out. I don't want to do that. I don't mind packing emergency items for the dog, some Band-Aids for myself, but I don't want to pack medicine.
Monique, on that note, I must thank you for joining me on the Chronically Will podcast, where we have real conversations
Oh, you're
with
welcome.
community that need to be heard. Monique, this year we celebrate your golden anniversaries of living with diabetes because you didn't celebrate it 2 years ago. But I'm gonna make sure in this space we will celebrate you because although it may not seem like the greatest of celebration, but we must consider that this is your second chance at life.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we think about 100, just 102 years ago, people that were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, there was no moving forward for them. There was a wait till death. So today and moving forward, I'm going to make sure I celebrate you
Oh, thank you. I never
because
even think about it. I just say, oh, I made it.
you made it. You made it. And just know along your journey, you've helped other people make it also. Monique, the artist. And I've come up with a title, Memoirs of Mo and Her Golden Year Living with Diabetes.
You know, gold.
Thank you.
What, 50 is the golden year?
Thank you. Yep.
Oh, okay.
25 would be considered silver.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I'm going to make sure I get a medal to you, a 50-year medal, because do you have any medals over the years of living with diabetes?
No, I never thought about it. I
I'm
have
going.
never thought
I'm going to
about it.
send. I'm going to send you the link. Do I have mine on me? Look, I'm going to show you right fast. I hope.
You get that from the American Diabetes Association?
So, Lily used to do them, but now, Children's with Diabetes does them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see. You see, that's a 10
Oh, I
year,
see it.
and on the back it's like Journey Award, and I just got this one more recently. There it is.
What year is that?
That's 20.
25?
Yeah. So we're gonna get you some medals. That's what I told her. I said, this is like my Olympics. All right. It's been great, Monique. And get out and walk that dog. I think I'm gonna do the same
Okay.
thing. My my 12:30 appointment had to reschedule because her grandfather
Yeah.
had to go to the hospital. But thank you.
Yeah.
I'm available anytime. Anytime you
Okay.
want to have a conversation.
Okay.
And we're gonna get Brunetto on here.